Chawama exposed, why evidence must replace political accusations in Zambia. After Chawama, accusations are flying in every direction. Some say the election was manipulated. Others say it was free and fair. But one question remains unanswered: where is the evidence? In this video, we examine why Zambia must move from political accusations to proof before trust in elections is permanently damaged. Good day, viewers. Welcome to another edition of the InspirAfrica Official. I'm Nakash. It's been quite a week here, hasn't it? The weather's been unpredictable, much like the political climate we're about to discuss. But before we dive into lighter topics, we need to address something that's been dominating headlines and social media feeds across Zambia. Today's lead story: Chawama exposed, a tale of accusations without evidence, political theater masquerading as justice, and a fundamental question about the rule of law in our nation. Picture this: a community. Chawama. A name that's become synonymous with controversy, where political operatives descended like vultures, cameras rolling, accusations flying. The air thick with allegations of electoral fraud, vote buying, intimidation. The kind of claims that, if true, should shake the very foundations of our democracy. But here's where our story takes a turn into the shadows of political manipulation. What happens when accusations become currency? When the mere act of pointing fingers replaces the painstaking work of gathering evidence? When political rallies substitute for courtrooms, and social media trials replace due process? Is this the Zambia we want to build, where anyone can be condemned without proof, where the loudest voice wins, not the most truthful one? What does it mean for our democracy when politicians can weaponize allegations, knowing they'll never have to prove them in a court of law? When the spectacle matters more than the substance? When the performance of outrage replaces the pursuit of justice? And perhaps most troubling of all, who benefits when we abandon evidence-based governance for accusation-based politics? Who loses? And what price will Zambia pay if we continue down this dangerous path? Factual foundation. The revelation came to light in the aftermath of a contentious by-election in Chawama constituency, a densely populated area in Lusaka that has historically been a political battleground. The date was early 2024, though the exact timeline became muddied by competing narratives and selective memory. Initial reports surfaced on social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and WhatsApp groups exploded with allegations. Opposition party members, particularly from one major political party, claimed they had uncovered systematic electoral fraud in Chawama. The accusations were explosive: vote-buying schemes, intimidation of voters, manipulation of voter rolls, and even claims of physical violence at polling stations. Within 48 hours, senior opposition figures descended on Chawama. Press conferences were held. Camera crews from multiple media houses arrived. The constituency became, overnight, the epicenter of Zambia's democratic crisis, at least according to the narrative being constructed. Key figures emerged: opposition MPs, party spokespersons, so-called witnesses who claimed to have first-hand knowledge of the alleged fraud. Names were mentioned. Accusations became more specific. One politician claimed to have irrefutable evidence. Another promised to expose the corruption at the highest levels. The sequence of events unfolded like this. First, the social media storm. Second, the political mobilization. Third, the media blitz. Fourth, demands for investigations. Fifth, threats of legal action. Sixth, calls for international observers to intervene. But conspicuously absent from this carefully orchestrated sequence was one critical element: the actual evidence. No documents were produced. No forensic analysis was presented. No independent verification was offered. Just accusation after accusation, each one building on the last, creating a narrative tower built entirely on air. The Electoral Commission of Zambia found itself in the crosshairs. Police were pressured to launch investigations. Civil society organizations were pulled into the fray, some calling for calm and due process, others joining the chorus of condemnation before any facts were established. What started as whispers became a roar, but throughout it all, one question remained persistently, uncomfortably unanswered: where was the proof? Direct evidence. Let's turn now to the words of those at the center of this storm. Because if we're to understand what happened in Chawama, we need to hear directly from the key players. Opposition MP at a press conference 3 days after the election. We have uncovered what can only be described as systematic fraud. The people of Chawama, they know what happened. They saw it with their own eyes. Vote buying. Intimidation. All of it. And we will not stand for this. We will not allow our democracy to be stolen in broad daylight. Reporter, can you provide specific examples? Do you have documentation? Opposition MP, the evidence is there. We're compiling it. We have witnesses. Dozens of them. They're willing to testify. But first, we need protection. We need guarantees that they won't be, intimidated or harassed. Reporter, when will you present this evidence to authorities? Opposition MP, soon. Very soon. But understand, this goes deep. This isn't just about Chawama. This is about a pattern. A system. And we're going to expose all of it. That was March 8th. As of this recording, no formal evidence has been submitted to any court or investigative body. Witness testimony shared on social media, a video that went viral. They came to my house. 3 of them. They said, vote for our candidate and we'll give you K200. I said no. I'm not selling my vote. But my neighbor, she took the money. I saw it. Everyone saw it. This is what's happening in Chawama. This is what they don't want you to know. The video accumulated over 50,000 views within 24 hours. But when journalists attempted to verify the account, to interview the woman on camera with proper verification protocols, she could not be located. The house shown in the video couldn't be confirmed to be in Chawama. No follow-up interview was ever conducted. Electoral Commission of Zambia spokesperson, official statement. The Electoral Commission takes all allegations of electoral malpractice seriously. We have established protocols for receiving and investigating complaints. To date, we have received numerous allegations regarding the Chawama by-election. However, we have not received formal complaints accompanied by evidence that would allow us to launch official investigations. We urge anyone with information to come forward through the proper channels. Social media allegations, while concerning, do not constitute legal evidence. We are committed to transparency, but we must operate within the framework of the law. Anonymous insider quoted in a partisan newspaper. Look, everyone knows what happened. The trucks came at night. Bags of Mayalai meal, cooking oil, money. Distributed to key areas. Voter rolls were tampered with, names added, names removed. But proving it? That's different. They're too careful. They know how to cover their tracks. But ask anyone in Chawama. They'll tell you. They all know. When pressed for documentation, for names, for verifiable details, the source provided none. The story ran anyway, shared thousands of times, cited as proof of fraud. Legal expert interviewed on radio, responding to the allegations. In our legal system, the burden of proof lies with the accuser. It's not enough to say fraud occurred. You must demonstrate it. You need evidence, documents, recordings, forensic analysis, credible witness testimony that can withstand cross-examination. What we're seeing in the Chawama situation is concerning because it represents a departure from this fundamental principle. Accusations are being treated as equivalent to evidence, which is, frankly, dangerous for the rule of law. Radio host, but if people witness these things, isn't that evidence? Legal expert. Witness testimony is evidence, yes, but it must be properly documented, sworn under oath, and subject to verification. Anonymous accounts on social media don't meet that standard. If these witnesses exist, they should come forward formally. Make statements to police. Testify in court if necessary. That's how our system works. the pattern becomes clear. Dramatic accusations, promises of evidence coming soon, deflection when pressed for details, and ultimately, nothing concrete ever produced. Just the lingering cloud of suspicion, which, as we're learning, can be more powerful than any actual truth. Deeper analysis. So what are we really witnessing in Chawama? What does this saga reveal about the state of Zambian politics, our media landscape, and our collective commitment to truth? The implications extend far beyond one constituency. This is about the weaponization of accusation in modern politics. It's a strategy we've seen deployed globally: make explosive claims, generate maximum outrage, dominate the news cycle, and then, when pressed for proof, move on to the next accusation, leaving a trail of unresolved allegations in your wake. Political analyst commentary. Dr. Kalufia Mwamba, a political scientist at the University of Zambia, offers this perspective. What we're seeing is the erosion of evidential standards in political discourse. In the past, serious accusations required serious proof. Now, the accusation itself is the weapon. The goal isn't conviction in a court of law. It's conviction in the court of public opinion. And in that court, evidence is optional. The opposition parties involved in the Chawama allegations have defended their approach. They argue that formal evidence gathering is difficult when they're facing a system rigged against them, when witnesses fear retaliation, when they lack resources for proper investigations. There's some validity to these concerns. Power imbalances do exist. Vulnerable communities may fear coming forward. Investigative resources are indeed limited for opposition parties. But here's the critical question: does that justify abandoning evidence altogether? Does it justify trial by social media? Does it justify making careers out of unproven allegations? Civil society response. The Zambia Council for Social Development issued a statement calling for restraint from all parties. Democracy depends on informed citizens making decisions based on verified information. When allegations circulate without evidence, when rumors replace facts, we all lose. We urge media houses to uphold journalistic standards. We urge political parties to respect due process. And we urge citizens to demand proof before passing judgment. But the statement was largely ignored, drowned out by the noise of competing narratives and partisan shouting matches. Legal and ethical questions. Several unresolved issues haunt the Chawama case. First, the question of accountability. If political figures make serious allegations that prove unfounded, should there be consequences? Currently, there aren't. The political cost of false accusations is minimal, which incentivizes their continued use. Second, the media's role. How should journalists handle unverified claims from political figures? The traditional approach, report the allegation but note the lack of evidence, often fails because the headline, fraud alleged in Chawama, travels faster than the caveat. Third, the public's responsibility. In an era of viral misinformation, what obligation do citizens have to verify before sharing, to question before condemning, to demand evidence before judgment? Connecting to systemic concerns. Chawama isn't isolated. It's part of a broader pattern in Zambian politics. We've seen similar dynamics play out in the 2021 general election, where both sides made unverified allegations. Various corruption scandals where accusations flew but prosecutions stalled. Political violence cases where blame was assigned based on partisan affiliation rather than investigation. The cumulative effect is corrosive. Trust in institutions erodes. The very concept of objective truth becomes politicized. We retreat into partisan echo chambers where our side is always right and the other side is always corrupt, regardless of what the evidence shows or doesn't show. International perspective. Zambia is not alone in facing this challenge. From the United States to the United Kingdom, from Brazil to the Philippines, democracies worldwide are grappling with the same phenomenon, the rise of post-truth politics, where emotional appeals trump factual claims, where the appearance of scandal matters more than actual wrongdoing. But that's hardly comforting. Just because it's a global trend doesn't mean we should accept it as inevitable. Other nations are fighting back. Strengthening fact-checking operations, imposing penalties for deliberate misinformation, reforming electoral laws to ensure timely and transparent investigations. Can Zambia do the same? Or will Chawama become the new normal, a template for how politics is conducted, where evidence is quaint and old-fashioned, and the only thing that matters is who can shout loudest and longest? The choice, ultimately, is ours.